My sister sent me a photo of herself unpacking boxes in what she thought was my apartment. Big smile, kids running around in the background. Her caption even said, "We're home." The thing is, she didn't ask. Didn't warn me, she just used the spare key I left with my neighbor. But I'd moved out 3 weeks ago. The man living there now, a federal officer off a night shift. She had absolutely no idea what was coming next.
If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. I was in Denver when my phone lit up. It was a Tuesday afternoon around 2 o'clock. I just finished a debrief with a client and was back in my hotel room pulling off my blazer when the photos started coming through. 1, then 3, then 6 in a row from my sister Renee. First photo. Renee standing in a living room I recognized immediately, arms spread wide, grinning at the camera. Second photo. Her daughter Kayla, 9 years old, spinning in a circle on a hardwood floor. Third photo. Her son, Marcus Jr., 12, already on a couch that used to be mine, feet up, looking like he'd lived there his whole life. The caption under the last one said, "Thank you, sis. We needed this." We're home with a little red heart at the end. I stood there in my hotel room with my blazer half off my shoulder and read that caption 3 times. I never said she could come. I hadn't even talked to Renee in 11 days. The last message between us was her asking if I'd seen a movie that came out last month and me saying no, I'd been busy. That was it. No conversation about housing, no mention of Darnell, her on-again, off-again boyfriend, or whatever was happening with that situation. Just a movie question and then silence. And then, apparently, a decision. Here's the thing you need to understand before I go any further. That apartment? I hadn't lived there in 3 weeks. My lease ended on the 1st of the month. I'd found a new place. Smaller, cheaper, 10 minutes closer to my office. And I had quietly, deliberately moved out without telling a single person in my family. I know how that sounds, but I need you to understand why I did it that way, because it matters for everything that comes after. My name is Deja. I'm 28 years old. I work in project management for a mid-sized consulting firm, and I have spent the better part of a decade being the family safety net for a sister who treats safety nets like hammocks. I didn't tell them about the new apartment because I already knew what would happen if I did. There would be a family discussion, led by my mother, about how I should have considered Renee's situation before making a major move. There would be gentle suggestions that maybe, since I was already in transition anyway, I might want to look into somewhere with a second bedroom. Just in case. Just for a little while. I'd heard that song enough times to know every word, so I packed my things, signed my new lease, and let the old apartment go back to the landlord without announcement. I thought I'd bought myself some peace. What I actually did was set the stage for my sister to walk directly into someone else's home and make herself comfortable. I sat down on the hotel bed. I looked at the photo of Renee's face, that wide, relieved, settled-in smile, and I thought, she has no idea. Let me tell you about Renee. She's 31, 3 years older than me. 2 kids from 2 different situations, both of which she describes as complicated relationships with difficult men, which is technically true and also leaves out a great deal. Marcus Jr.'s father is around but unreliable in the specific way that means he shows up for birthdays and disappears when school supplies are due. Kayla's father has been consistently absent since Kayla was 4, which Renee has never fully forgiven him for and also never fully adjusted to. Renee is not a bad person. I want to be clear about that before you get the wrong idea. She loves her children fiercely. Whatever her other failings, that part is real. She's funny when she's not in crisis mode. She remembers things. Your favorite candy, the name of the professor you complained about 2 years ago, the song that was playing the night something important happened to you. She has a warmth that draws people in. She makes the best sweet potato pie in the family, no contest, and she knows it, and she'll remake it from scratch for your birthday, without you even having to ask. When things are calm, she's someone I genuinely like talking to. The problem is that things are rarely calm around Renee for very long, And the problem under that problem is that she has never, in 31 years, had to develop a system for handling the not calm parts on her own. The pattern, as I've come to understand it, goes like this. Renee gets into a situation, a relationship, a living arrangement, a financial stretch, that works for a while and then stops working. When it stops working, she doesn't immediately pivot to fixing it. She waits. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, hoping the situation will correct itself or that someone else will notice and step in. She operates on a kind of faith that the people who love her will catch her before she hits the ground, and the faith is well-founded because we always have. Before Darnell, there was the 3-week stay at my parents' house that turned into 4 months. My father had to gently start mentioning apartments before she started looking, and even then she found a reason to delay until my mother's back started acting up from sleeping on the couch every morning when the kids woke up before 7. Before that, the cousin's couch situation, 2 weeks that the cousin said was fine and was not fine, that ended with a family group text about communication and expectations. Before that, there was the time Renee called me from a parking lot at 11 o'clock at night with both kids asleep in the back seat and nowhere to go. I drove 20 minutes to where she was and followed her back to my apartment and gave her my couch. 6 weeks. She ate my groceries, used my streaming accounts, borrowed money for things she described as temporary expenses, and left when Darnell got himself together enough to want her back. Not with a thank you, but with a complaint that I woke up too early for work and it disturbed her sleep. It is always temporary. That is the one constant. The family's explanation for all of it has never changed. Renee has it hard. Deja has it together. Deja can afford to give a little. I've been hearing some version of that sentence my whole life. I was 12 years old the first time someone in my family used the word selfish about me for not giving Renee something that belonged to me. My birthday money, specifically, that she wanted for something I wasn't supposed to know about and which my mother said I should just share because I was the younger one and I didn't understand what Renee was going through. I was 17 when I heard family comes first deployed like a weapon in a conversation about my own needs for the first time, not the last. I was 23 when I finally started understanding, clearly and without apology, the real difference between being supported by your family and being consumed by them. But understanding something and escaping it are not the same. What I hadn't escaped was the spare key. I'd left it with my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Pettigrew, a retired schoolteacher who kept her watch exact and her blinds cracked at precise intervals, specifically for water heater emergencies and package deliveries. Somewhere along the way, Renee had gotten hold of a copy, probably during that last couch stay, probably off the little hook by my front door where I used to keep it before I started being more careful about such things. She'd kept it the way Renee keeps things that aren't hers, quietly, without mentioning it, on the private theory that she might need it someday. Someday had arrived, 2,000 miles away with a federal officer's furniture already in the rooms. My mother's name is Lorraine, and she is, in the truest sense of the word, a diplomat. She doesn't argue. She manages. She doesn't take sides. She positions. In 30 years of watching my mother handle family conflict, I have never once seen her lose her composure in front of someone she was trying to persuade. She saves that for afterwards, behind closed doors, when only my father can hear. She called me 4 times in a row while I was still sitting on the hotel bed looking at Renee's photos. I let the first 3 go to voicemail. On the 4th call, I picked up. Deja, thank goodness. She sounded like she'd been holding her breath. Renee told me what happened. That poor thing had no way to reach you and the children needed somewhere safe, and she remembered she had your key. She didn't have permission to use that key, Mama. She called you, baby. She says she called twice. I checked my call log while she was talking. 1 missed call from Renee, 11:30 the night before. No voicemail. No follow-up text until the photos this afternoon, by which point she'd already moved in. 1 call, I said. At 11:30 at night. That's not asking. She has the children with her. Lorraine said it the way she always says it, like the children is a complete argument in itself. Like the fact of their existence settles every question about where they should be sleeping. I've always thought that was interesting, by the way. The children. Not her children, not Marcus and Kayla. Just the children. This abstract category that is somehow always my responsibility to account for, even though I didn't create them and I'm not their parent. Mama, I said, I'm 3,000 miles away. Even if I wanted to help, I couldn't exactly. You could come home early. There it was, the sentence underneath the sentence. You could rearrange your professional obligations, cut a work trip short, and come home to once again serve as the solution to a problem your sister created. I have to go, I said. I have a meeting. Deja, this is family. I know it is. I'll call you later. I hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand for a moment. Then I called my former landlord. His name is Emmanuel Okafor. He's been managing properties for 30-something years, came over from Lagos in the late 80s, built a small portfolio of well-kept buildings in the city, and runs them himself with the particular precision of someone who spent decades earning everything he has and intends to protect it. I had always liked Mr. Okafor. He fixed things promptly. He cashed checks quickly. He never once showed up unannounced. As landlords go, he was about as good as it gets. He picked up on the second ring, and he was already sorry. Miss Deja. His accent was warm and careful. I was hoping you might call. There has been a situation. I know, I said. I just saw the photos. I must tell you something, and I hope you will understand. The apartment was rented 2 days after you turned in your keys. The new tenant moved in yesterday. He's a federal officer, very professional, very... I know, I said again. My sister didn't know I'd moved out. A pause. I see. She had a spare key I didn't know she still had. She let herself in, thinking it was still my place. Another pause, longer this time. This is a difficult situation, Miss Deja. That was one way to put it. The new tenant, I said. Tell me about him. Officer Calloway, federal law enforcement. He specifically requested a quiet building. He works nights, so he sleeps during the day when he is off shift. He is... Mr. Okafor paused, choosing his words. Very particular about his space. He called me this morning. He came home from his shift and found... Another pause. He found a woman and 2 children in his apartment. One of the children had been bouncing a ball on his hardwood floors. I closed my eyes. Marcus Jr. and his basketball. Of course. Mr. Okafor, I said, I'm going to make this right. Can you give me Officer Calloway's contact information? I already have his permission to share it. He read me the number slowly twice. Thank you, I said. I'm sorry this happened. Miss Deja. His voice was gentle. I am sorry, too. These things, they happen in families. But please understand, the lease is not yours. The apartment is not yours. Whatever follows is outside my authority now. I understood. The landlord's problem was solved the moment he rented the apartment. What was left was mine. I turned my phone off after I hung up with Mr. Okafor. Not out of avoidance. I just needed 20 minutes to think without interruption. I ordered a sandwich from room service, a turkey club I wasn't particularly hungry for. I sat at the small desk by the window, and I watched Denver go the particular flat gray it goes in the late afternoon when the clouds come in from the mountains and the whole city seems to hold its breath. I thought about Renee in that apartment. I thought about what she must have felt walking in, the relief of it, the settling. She would have gone room by room first, probably. Made a mental inventory of what was there, what would work, what could be moved. She would have set the kids loose on the second bedroom while she figured out the kitchen situation. She would have sat down on the couch, my old couch, which had a spring that listed slightly to the left, and exhaled for the first time in however long this crisis had been building. She would have felt saved. That's the thing about Renee. She's not calculating in a mean-spirited way. She genuinely believes in the moment that the people who love her want her to have what she needs. She had a key. She needed somewhere to be. Therefore, problem solved. And thank you, sis. Heart emoji. We're home. The gap between what Renee believes and what is actually true has caused more damage in this family than I have words for. When I turned the phone back on, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I scrolled through them the way you scroll through a show you've already seen the ending of. Not looking for surprises, just tracking the progression. Renee at 6:47 that morning. Some man is banging on the door saying, "This is his apartment, where are you?" My mother at 6:52. Renee called crying, "What is happening?" My father at 7:15 in his characteristic brevity, "Call us now." Renee again at 7:18. This man is threatening to call the police. He is being completely unreasonable. My Aunt Vivian, who almost never texts and uses proper capitalization and punctuation when she does, at 7:45, "Your mother is beside herself. What is going on over there?" Then a gap of almost 2 hours. Then Renee at 9:03. "We had to wait in the hallway. The man is still in there. His supervisor is here now." "Deja, where are you?" Then my father at 9:25. "Deja, please call your mother." Then a cluster from my cousin Tamara, who had apparently been brought in as reinforcement. 3 messages of increasing urgency, asking me to just please respond so the family knows you're okay. Then Renee at 10:40. "I cannot believe you are doing this to me and the children, doing this to her, as if my failure to answer messages about a situation I had no part in creating was itself an act of deliberate cruelty." I set the phone down. I ate half my sandwich. I looked at the gray sky over Denver and thought about what I was going to say to Officer Calloway and whether saying it would make things better or just differently complicated. Then I ordered coffee and thought about it for 20 more minutes, because I had choices here, real ones, and I needed to be clear about which one I was making and why before I picked up the phone. My father, Walter, called while I was still working up to dialing Calloway's number. I picked up because I've never been able to not pick up for my father. He has this quality, not manipulative, just genuine, of sounding like whatever he's calling about is something he genuinely needs to understand, and I've always had a hard time leaving that alone. "Your mother is..." He started, and then stopped, started again. "Deja, you moved out without telling Renee." Not a question. A statement that was waiting to become one. "The lease ended, Daddy. I found a new place. I moved." Without telling her. Without telling anyone. I kept my voice even. It wasn't a family decision. It was my apartment, my lease. He was quiet for a moment. I could hear him breathing. That slow, measured breath he does when he's working through something he doesn't want to get wrong. "She had the key," he said finally. I know she had the key. She thought, I know what she thought, Daddy. She thought I'd drop everything to solve her problem the way I always have, and this time she was wrong. Another pause. Where was she supposed to go? There it was. The question that has followed me through 28 years of being Renee's sister. Where is she supposed to go? As if the answer to that question is always supposed to be me, as if my address has always been hers to use. I don't know, I said, but that's not my question to answer. She's your sister. I know who she is, Daddy. Silence. Not angry silence. Something more like the silence of a man being forced to hold 2 things at once that he'd always kept separate. He loves Renee. He loves me. He has always managed that by making my love look more abundant, more available, more elastic than hers. What do you want us to do, Deja? He said finally. This officer is being very... I want you to tell Renee to apologize to the man, pack her things, and leave. Immediately. And then what? Where does she go? Daddy. I said it quietly. That is not my problem to solve. He let out a long breath. Jesus, Deja. I know, I said. I'm going to call Officer Calloway now. I hung up before he could say anything else. He picked up on the first ring. Calloway. His voice was professional and extremely tired. Not angry, past angry into something colder and more controlled. In the background, I could hear voices, movement, what sounded like another officer saying something low and firm. Officer Calloway, my name is Deja Morris. I'm Rebecca Morris's sister. Mr. Okafor gave me your number. A short silence. Ms. Morris? Something in his voice shifted, not warm, but less guarded. I've been waiting for someone rational to call. I almost laughed. Almost. I can imagine. Your sister is claiming she has permission to be in this apartment. She has shown me what appears to be a spare key. She has told me and two of my colleagues that this is a family residence and that we are harassing her. He paused. Her son threw a basketball at my kitchen window about 40 minutes ago. It did not break, but I understand, I said. Does she have permission to be in that apartment? I sat down on the edge of the hotel bed. This was the moment. Every conversation has one. The place where you make the choice that determines what the next year of your life looks like. I could feel it the way you feel a door that's about to close. On one side of it, the clean truth. No, she does not have permission. She has never had permission. Please proceed accordingly. On the other side, something messier, more complicated, and less satisfying in the short term. I thought about Marcus Jr., 12 years old. Not a bad kid, just a kid who'd never been taught where the lines were. I thought about Kayla, 9, spinning on a hardwood floor in a stranger's apartment because her mother had told her it was okay. They didn't make any decisions here. It was a misunderstanding, I said. She genuinely didn't know I'd moved out. She had an old key and she thought she was using my apartment with my implied permission. She was wrong, but it wasn't intentional trespassing. Calloway was quiet for a moment. I see. She will leave immediately. I can guarantee that, and I will personally cover any damages. Another pause. There is damage to the flooring. The locks need to be changed as a precaution. I'd estimate around $800. I'll take care of it, I said, all of it. Ms. Morris. His voice was still controlled, but something in it had eased slightly. If you can guarantee she leaves now and does not return, I'm willing to treat this as a misunderstanding rather than pursue formal charges. She'll be gone within the hour, I said. I'll call her right now. I'll give you 15 minutes before I make my own call, he said. Not a threat, just a fact. The particular precision of someone who keeps promises. Understood, I said. Thank you, officer. I hung up and stared at the wall for exactly 30 seconds. Then I called Renee. She picked up before the first ring finished. Deja, oh my God, do you know what has been... Renee. Just her name. She stopped. You have to leave, I said. Right now. You have 15 minutes. I cannot believe that you... Renee, listen to me. That apartment is not mine anymore. I moved out 3 weeks ago. The man standing in the hallway right now is the legal tenant. He is a federal officer. He has colleagues with him. And I have just convinced him, barely, to let this go as a misunderstanding instead of pressing charges. Silence. So you are going to pack everything you brought in there, apologize to Officer Calloway, and leave. Right now. Do you understand me? More silence then. Where am I supposed to go? And there it was again. That question, as dependable as gravity. I thought about the $800 I'd already promised Calloway I'd cover. I thought about every dollar I'd transferred over the years that came back to me in the form of gratitude for exactly as long as it took Renee to need something else. I thought about 6 weeks on my couch, my groceries eaten, my streaming account used, the way she'd mentioned on her way out that my alarm went off too early and disrupted her sleep schedule, my sleep schedule in my apartment, that I was paying for. Call Mama and Daddy, I said. Tell them you need somewhere to stay. Deja, 13 minutes, Renee. I hung up. I immediately texted Calloway. She knows. She's leaving now. I'll arrange payment for damages by end of week. He responded 2 minutes later. Thank you. I sat with my phone in my lap and took stock of what I had just done. Here's the thing I hadn't said to myself clearly until that moment, sitting in the Denver hotel room with Calloway's thank you on my screen. I had protected Renee. Again, not completely. She still had to leave. She still had to face the humiliation of being removed from a stranger's apartment with her children and her belongings and her pride in shambles. I hadn't undone all of it, but I had smoothed the sharpest edge of it. I had said misunderstanding when I could have said trespass. I had paid for the damage when I could have let her pay for it herself. I told myself it was about the kids, and that was partially true. But I also knew, sitting there, that I'd made a calculation. I'd bought Renee something she hadn't asked me for and didn't deserve. I'd done it because the alternative, charges, a record, social services called on her children, felt like more than I wanted on my conscience. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I'd told myself, this closes it. I pay the $800, Renee gets the lesson without the permanent damage, and we're done. This is the last one. I told myself that before. The difference, this time, was that I actually meant it. I transferred the $800 to Mr. Okafor the next morning. He confirmed receipt by 9 a.m. and said he'd have the locksmith out by noon. At 9:47, Renee texted me. Thank you for handling it. Not, I'm so sorry. Not, I'll pay you back. Not even, I didn't know, Deja. I really didn't know. I am mortified. Just, thank you for handling it. With a little emoji of 2 hands pressed together. I stared at that text for a long time. Thank you for handling it. Like I was a service. Like I was the building's maintenance line, and this was just a ticket that had been closed. Like $800 was a routine operating cost of being Deja Morris, and the appropriate response was a small acknowledgement before moving on. I didn't respond. I put my phone in my bag and went to my morning client meeting and sat for 90 minutes talking about project timelines and stakeholder management. And the whole time there was a small, very clear voice in the back of my head saying, this is the last time. Not the last time I'd talk to Renee. Not the last time I'd show up for family, but the last time I'd be the solution to a problem I didn't create. The last time I'd transfer money and get thank you for handling it and call it love. I'd always known that intellectually. I'd said it to myself before, in exactly those words, and then 6 months later there'd be another emergency, and I'd find myself writing another check or giving another couch or making another call I shouldn't have to make. But something had shifted. Maybe it was the weight of that specific text. Maybe it was the clarity of sitting in a hotel room in Denver, watching my family's crisis unfold in real time while I was 3,000 miles away, and it still somehow became my thing to fix. I went back to my room that evening and sat on the same edge of the same bed and looked at the same gray Denver sky and thought, $800. That's what this round cost me. $800 and a 15-minute phone call to a federal officer. It could have cost a lot more. Next time, and there was always a next time, I planned to be somewhere further away. Renee and the kids moved into my parents' house. This was presented to me as a temporary arrangement when my mother called 4 days after the Denver situation to update me. She used the word temporary 4 separate times in one phone call. I counted. It's just temporary. We have the space. Temporarily. Renee just needs a little time to get back on her feet temporarily. We're not making any permanent decisions. This is all just temporary. I said in the right places and let her talk. Here is what I knew that my mother did not yet know. In this family, temporary is not a time frame. It is a category of denial. Temporary means We are doing this thing that we know cannot continue indefinitely, and we are calling it temporary so that nobody has to say out loud that we have already accepted it as permanent. Nobody has to plan an exit. Nobody has to set a deadline. We just call it temporary and wait for someone else to solve it. I had been temporarily on my own couch for 6 weeks. I had temporarily lent money that I was temporarily going to get back. My parents had temporarily had Renee and the kids before. That time it was 4 months, and one of my father's golf buddies had to gently mention one Sunday afternoon that Walter seemed tired lately, and did everything seem okay at home? I let Lorraine finish the update. I said I was glad they had a plan. I said to give the kids my love. I hung up. Then I went about my life. I had moved into my new apartment while I was in Denver. My friend Keisha had a truck and had handled the last of my boxes while I was gone, God bless her. And I came home from the work trip to find everything already in place. Smaller than the old place by about 200 square feet, quieter neighborhood, a laundry room actually on my floor instead of in the basement, no parking situation to negotiate, 10 minutes from my office instead of 25, my coffee maker on the kitchen counter, my books on the built-in shelf, my one good plant, a pothos named Gerald, who has survived 3 apartments and 1 ill-advised move to a window with no light, positioned in the eastern window, where he immediately showed his appreciation by putting out 3 new leaves inside 2 weeks. The first Saturday morning, I woke up at 8:15 and lay in bed for 20 minutes doing nothing. I actually checked my phone to make sure I hadn't missed something. The quiet felt wrong until it felt right, and then it felt like something I had been owed for a long time. I slept past 7 on Saturday mornings. I cooked actual meals at actual dinner times instead of eating leftovers standing over the sink. I went for evening walks without carrying my phone in my hand. I bought myself a good bottle of wine on a Wednesday for no reason and drank 1 glass of it while watching something I'd been meaning to watch for 8 months. I did not go to Sunday dinners. I did not check in on the situation at my parents' house. I did not feel guilty about any of it, or I felt a version of guilt, the old, trained, reflexive kind that I'd spent years learning to recognize as not actually mine, the kind that says, someone in your family is struggling and you are here, comfortable doing nothing, that kind. I felt it the way you feel a phantom pain, real in its way, but not pointing to anything that actually needed fixing. I examined it and I set it down carefully, like you set down something that isn't yours, and I went on with my evening. Temporary, they said. We'd see. 6 weeks in, my father called on a Wednesday morning. He didn't lead with the problem. Walter never leads with the problem. He starts with the weather, with how work is going, with something small that establishes that this is a normal call between 2 people who talk regularly, not a call that begins with something happened. We talked for 4 minutes about the city council meeting he'd been to the night before. Then he said, almost casually, "Marcus broke my trophy cabinet yesterday." I stopped walking. I'd been pacing my kitchen and stood still. How? Basketball, in the living room, at 9 in the morning. A pause. The glass is just, it's everywhere. The trophies, some of them are chipped. The case itself is... He stopped. It's gone, Deja. My father's trophy cabinet. If you have never seen it, you cannot fully understand. It takes up the entire north wall of the living room. He built it himself over a summer out of cherry wood when I was 7 years old. Inside it, 3 decades of the amateur golf tournaments he plays with his old friends from the construction company, the plaques from when his crew won safety awards 4 years running, a ceramic mug his first crew gave him on his last day before retirement that says, "We built this," and which he touches every time he walks by it. He dusts it on Saturdays. He has dusted it on Saturdays my entire life. "Where was Renee?" I said. "Asleep." He said it the way you say something when you've already decided not to be angry about it. "She said she didn't hear it happen." "And when you talked to her about it?" A breath. "She said boys need space to move." that Marcus has energy that needs somewhere to go, and that the neighborhood isn't safe for him to play outside unsupervised. A pause. She said I was more attached to things than to people. I didn't say anything. Deja. His voice was quieter now. The performance of normalcy dropped. I am 73 years old. I retired so I could read books and work in my garden and watch old movies on Saturday nights with your mother. I didn't retire to... He stopped. I'm tired. That was all he said. Not a request. Not an accusation. Just a man who had built a cabinet out of cherry wood and watched it shatter on a Wednesday morning and needed someone to tell the truth to. I know, Daddy, I said. I know you do, he said. We stayed on the line for another minute without talking. Then he said he had to go water his tomatoes. I said, okay. I held the phone after he hung up and thought about his face the last time I'd been there for Sunday dinner, 4 months ago now, pleased with himself, the house exactly as he wanted it, his retirement finally feeling like retirement. Gone now, scattered across a hardwood floor with the broken glass. I'd been expecting the call from Lorraine for weeks. What I hadn't expected was that she would be calling from Aunt Vivian's house when she made it. Vivian is my mother's older sister. She lives across town in a brick house she's owned since 1989. She never married, never had children, and has spent 40 years watching this family from a careful distance with the particular clear-eyed perspective of someone who loves people without being consumed by them. She and my mother talk every Sunday. She comes to major holidays. She sends birthday cards with actual handwritten notes. And she has never, in my entire life, inserted herself into family business unless she was asked. My mother called on a Thursday evening, and I could hear, even before she said anything, that she was somewhere different. The background sound was wrong, quieter, the particular stillness of Vivian's house, which smells like cedar and has dark wood furniture and a grandfather clock that chimes on the hour. Mama, I said. Where are you? Vivian's. A pause. I needed somewhere to think. I sat down. What happened? I came home from the grocery store yesterday. Her voice was controlled, but just barely. The kind of control that's working very hard. I was gone for 2 hours. When I got back, Kayla had painted on my bathroom wall. My good craft acrylics, the ones I use for the community art class. The ones I keep specifically on the top shelf in the back of the closet. I already knew what she was going to say next. Renee was in the bedroom, door closed, said she had a headache and couldn't be interrupted. A pause. She said children need to express their creativity. She said I was being rigid about material things. I didn't say I told you so. It's not something I do, and it wouldn't have helped. I didn't say a word to her, my mother said. I just picked my purse back up and drove to Vivian's. And then she said, Vivian told me something. What did she say? She said, a pause, long enough that I thought she might not finish it. She said that Renee has been running over everybody who loves her since she was 22, and that we keep letting her. Vivian, saying out loud in 30 words what I had been trying to articulate for years. She's right, I said. I know she is. My mother's voice broke slightly on the last word. Not a sob. Lorraine does not sob on the phone, but a crack, a small fracture in the 30 years of composure. Deja, the house. Do you know what it looks like now? Your father's cabinet, the walls in the hallway, the guest room. Renee converted it into some kind of children's art space. She took down the photos I had in there, just took them down and put them in a closet. A pause. 20 years of keeping that house the way I wanted it, and now it looks like... She stopped. Mama, I said, do you want my advice? A short silence. Yes, please. Tell Renee she has 30 days to find her own place. Whether it meets all her criteria or not, and if she won't leave, you help her pack, but she leaves anyway. We can't throw our daughter out. You're not throwing her out. You're enforcing reasonable limits in your own home. Renee has options. She's choosing not to pursue them because staying with you is easier. Another pause. Then quietly, What if she really has nowhere to go? Then she'll figure something out, the same way other single mothers do. The grandfather clock at Vivian's house chimed 8 times, clear and even. "Deja," my mother said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did we fail you?" I didn't answer right away. The question was so different from anything Lorraine had ever said to me that I needed a moment to make sure I'd heard it correctly. Not why are you being so hard on your sister? Not family comes first, Deja, but did we fail you? You loved her, I said finally, and you protected her. But I think you protected her from things that would have taught her how to be a grown woman. And now she's 31, and she still doesn't know how to solve her own problems. I paused. She knows how. She just learned that making a crisis gets other people to solve them for her. And you? Her voice was careful. Did we fail you too? I thought about being 12 and hearing the word selfish for wanting to keep my own birthday money. I thought about 16, 17, 23. I thought about every time I'd been the reliable one in a way that was really just a way of saying, we expect more from you. You taught me to take care of myself, I said. That turned out to be a gift, even when it didn't feel like one. Lorraine was quiet for a moment. I'm not coming home until she moves out, she said. It wasn't dramatic, just a fact, a line she'd finally found. I know, I said. Call me if you need anything. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time with my hands around a cup of tea that had gone cold. Something had shifted. Not fixed, not resolved, but genuinely different. For the first time, my mother wasn't calling me to manage Renee's situation. She was calling me because she'd run out of ways to pretend the situation was manageable. That was not nothing. 2 weeks after Lorraine settled in at Vivian's, she called again. This time she sounded like herself. Not the diplomat version, not the mother managing a crisis version. Just Lorraine, tired and honest and past the point of performing. I keep thinking about what you said, she told me, about how you taught me to take care of myself, about how that was a gift. I meant it, I said. I know you did. A pause. I've been thinking about something else you said, about how Renee learned that making a crisis gets other people to solve them. And I keep... She stopped, started again. I keep trying to remember when that started, when we started doing that. I didn't answer. It wasn't a question that needed my answer. She was working through something. I think, she said slowly, I think it started when she was about 15. She went through that hard year. You remember, the friend group drama, the grades dropping, the whole mess with that teacher, and your father and I we went all in. We made sure everything was okay. We cleared her path. I remember, I said. You were 12, and you watched us do all of that for her, and you went and handled your own grades. You figured out your own friend situation. You didn't ask us for any of it. A pause. I told myself that was because you were stronger, that you didn't need what she needed. I needed it, I said. I just knew I wasn't going to get it. A long silence. Deja. Her voice was careful and soft. I am so sorry. I hadn't expected that either. Not the apology. I'd imagined it in the abstract, the way you imagine things that might happen in a better version of your life. But hearing it, in my mother's actual voice, in the particular careful way she said my name. Thank you, I said. That matters. What do I do now? She said. With Renee, with all of it. Give her 30 days, make it real, and then enforce it. And if she can't find anywhere? Then she finds somewhere anyway, because she has to. I paused. Mama, every single time we've made Renee's problem our emergency, she has had less reason to solve it herself. This is the only version of helping her that might actually help her. Another silence. Then, I'm going to talk to your father. Good, I said. I love you, baby. I love you too, Mama. After that call, I went for a long walk. It was early evening, the light, the particular gold it gets in late fall, and I walked 6 blocks out of my way just to stay in it. I hadn't cried. I was surprised by that. I'd expected it to crack something open, the apology, the acknowledgement, but what I actually felt was something quieter, not resolution, more like recognition. The feeling of being seen finally by someone whose seeing had mattered to me my whole life. It didn't undo anything, but it was real, and it was mine. 3 weeks after Lorraine settled at Vivian's, Renee called me. She'd been texting sporadically. Updates about the kids, questions about nothing in particular, a photo of Marcus Jr. at a school event with the caption, "He's doing good." But this was the first actual call. She opened with a dinner invitation. She'd been cooking, she said. She wanted to have the family over, clear the air, start fresh, move forward. I said I would come, not because I trusted the invitation. I went because I was curious about what version of Renee would show up when she was the one who needed something from me. The house was different. I noticed it the moment I pulled up. Toys scattered across the front lawn, a basketball, a jump rope, 3 plastic cups that had been left out in the rain. The driveway had chalk drawings that had been there long enough to fade at the edges. Inside, the furniture rearranged, Walter's living room remade around a television that was too large for the wall it was on. Scuff marks on the hallway baseboards, the guest room visible through a half-open door. No longer a guest room. A folding table covered in art supplies, a child-sized easel, papers taped to the walls. No trophy case. My father was sitting in a recliner that had been pushed to an awkward angle to accommodate the new furniture arrangement. He looked up when I came in and smiled, genuinely pleased to see me, and also just tired. The bone-deep tiredness of a man whose retirement had been repurposed. Renee came out of the kitchen in an apron. "Deja." She smiled wide and came to hug me. She smelled like pot roast and something floral. "I'm so glad you came. I made your favorite." Pot roast is not my favorite. It's what Renee makes when she wants to perform effort. I noted this and said nothing. "It smells great," I said. The kids came in. Marcus Jr., quieter than I'd seen him, Kayla hanging back slightly. They'd been prepped. Behave tonight. Aunt Deja is important. I could feel it in the careful way they said hello. We ate. The pot roast was good, actually. She'd done something right with the seasoning. My father talked about his garden. My mother, who had come home for this dinner and was managing her composure with the focused attention of someone walking a balance beam, asked me about work. Renee kept the conversation moving, kept it light, kept refilling glasses, kept being the version of herself she pulls out when she needs something and knows the direct approach won't work. It wasn't until dessert that she got to it. She'd made banana pudding, real banana pudding, with the vanilla wafers and the fresh bananas, the kind that takes actual time. She set it on the table and sat down and folded her hands and looked at me with an expression I recognized immediately, prepared sincerity. "Deja," she said, "I owe you an enormous apology." I waited. I should have asked you. I should have called, a real call, not just a text, and asked you directly. I put you in a terrible position, and I put the kids through something scary, and I am genuinely sorry for all of it. She said it cleanly. No fumbling. She'd practiced. "I appreciate that," I said. "I've been thinking a lot about how to make it right." She paused for effect. "I know I owe you for what happened with the apartment, the damages, all of that. I want to pay you back." Another pause. "What I was hoping was that we could work together on it. If you could cover the immediate costs, I could set up a payment plan, work it off over time, 6 months maybe, once things stabilize." There it was. I had paid $800 in full weeks ago, and now Renee was asking me to treat that $800 as a loan, one she'd repay in a payment plan over 6 months, contingent on her situation stabilizing, which was the family word for never. But that wasn't even the whole ask. because as I listened, I realized she wasn't just talking about the $800. She was talking about going forward, future expenses as the family gets back on its feet. She was asking for an ongoing arrangement, packaged as debt repayment, dressed up as reconciliation. "What happens if I say no?" I said. Her composure cracked slightly, just at the edges. "Then I'd have to find another way. Maybe ask Mama and Daddy to take something out against the house." Against the house. My parents' retirement. The one asset they had that was fully theirs. I looked around the table. My mother, very still. My father, looking at his banana pudding. Marcus Jr. and Kayla eating. Unaware. The way children are unaware of the adult calculations happening over their heads. I put my napkin on the table and picked up my purse. "I need to think about it," I said. "Deja." "The pot roast was really good, Renee. I mean that." I stood up. I said goodbye to Marcus Jr. and Kayla by name. I thanked my parents for having me. And I walked out of a house that had been carefully staged to receive a certain answer and did not give it. Behind me, I heard Renee say something to our parents in a low, tight voice. I didn't turn around. 14 days after the dinner, Walter called me at 7:30 in the morning. My father does not call before 9. He considers it a matter of basic respect for my time, for my morning, for the fact that adults should have the first hour of the day to themselves before family business starts. In 28 years, the pre-9 calls I'd gotten from him were attached to things like, "Someone died," or "Someone is in the hospital," or "Something happened that you need to know right now." "Deja," he said, "your mother left again last night." I sat up in bed. What happened? "She came home from Vivian's last week. Tried again." He paused. I could hear him choosing words carefully, the way he does when he's reporting something he's also still processing. "Renee converted the den while your mother was gone. She moved all the furniture into the garage, put down those foam tile squares, set up a projector screen. She said the children needed a dedicated movement area." Another pause. "Your mother came home, walked through the house room by room, didn't say anything to anyone, went upstairs, packed a bag, left." Lorraine. My mother, who has managed 30 years of family tension through warmth and carefully chosen words, and the diplomatic redirection of anyone who looked like they were about to say something they couldn't take back. My mother, who once told me that the way you handle difficult people is by making them feel heard, even when you're not going to give them what they want. She'd walked through the house, said nothing, and left. "She left a note on the kitchen counter," he said. "Said she wasn't coming back until Renee had her own place." We were quiet together for a moment. Not the silence of conflict, something else. The silence of two people who have been circling the same truth from different distances and have finally arrived at the same spot. "Daddy," I said, "how are you doing? Honestly." A long pause. "I'm tired," he said. "I am just very tired, Deja." "I know. I retired so I could have some peace, some mornings to myself. I planted a garden because I had time to plant a garden." His voice was even, but I could hear underneath it the thing he didn't usually let me hear, how much this was costing him. "I've been refereeing arguments about television time every night for 2 months. That's what I'm doing." I didn't fill the silence. "Deja," he said finally, "I need to ask you something." "Okay, hypothetically, if you were willing to help, with the remaining costs from the apartment and maybe first month's rent somewhere new, what would your conditions be?" That word again. Conditions. The same word I'd used in my head 100 times and never heard from my father's mouth directed at me. He had asked me to help before. He had asked me to consider, to think about it, to remember that family comes first. He had never once asked me what I required before I gave anything. 30 days, I said. Renee moves out within 30 days of me paying, not 60. Not when she finds the right place, not when the kids finish the semester. 30 days, whatever she can afford in that time, and this is the last financial help she gets from me. Ever. A silence. Ever, he repeated. Ever. No more emergencies that become my expenses. No more temporary help that becomes permanent. This is it, the last one. What if something genuinely serious happens with the children? I took my time with this, not because I didn't know what I wanted to say, but because I wanted to say it right. Then Renee handles it the way other single mothers handle serious things. She calls the school. She calls the pediatrician. She applies for every program and assistance and resource that exists for exactly this situation. She figures it out because she'll have to. I paused. Daddy, the consequence of Renee not figuring it out has always been there. We just kept absorbing it before it could reach her. At my parents' house, the background sound is the kitchen faucet. Slightly loose in the same specific way it's been slightly loose my entire life, a drip that happens every 40 seconds or so. I could hear it now in the silence. I need to talk to your mother, he said. I know you do. Deja. He stopped. Then, we should have listened to you, years ago, about all of this. I let that sit where he put it. Call me after you talk to Mama, I said. He called back in 22 hours, not after a week of deliberation, not after more family discussion. 22 hours. We accept your conditions, he said. No modifications. I closed my eyes for a moment. Okay, Daddy. Your mother. He paused. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry, that it took us this long to understand what you've been dealing with. I didn't speak right away. I let the words settle somewhere they could actually land. Tell her I love her, I said, and tell her I'm glad she left. She called 3 days later. I'd been expecting it. Deja, we need to talk about these conditions. Okay, I said. 30 days is not realistic. You know that, right? You cannot find appropriate housing for children in 30 days in this market. The school situation alone, the timeline isn't negotiable, Renee. 2 months. That's all I'm asking. 2 months, and then I'll have something solid lined up. Somewhere with good schools, somewhere the kids can... No. A pause. I don't understand why you're doing this. I apologized. I made dinner. I'm trying to fix things between us, and you keep moving the goalpost. I haven't moved any goalpost. I told Daddy 30 days, that's what I'm telling you. Because you want me to fail. Her voice shifted. Not loud, but sharper. You want me to grab whatever I can find in 30 days and have it fall apart so you can say you were right? So you can tell everyone that you offered to help and Renee just couldn't get it together. I let her finish. Renee, I said, I want you to find stable housing and build an independent life. I have wanted that for you for years. The offer on the table is more than I've ever given you at one time, and it comes with one condition that is completely within your ability to meet. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. 30 days, or the offer expires and you figure it out on your own. A longer silence. And if I can't find anything, then you find something anyway, because you'll have to. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you've really changed. Yes, I said, I have. Not for the better. That depends on your perspective. She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand for a minute, checking myself for doubt, for guilt, for the old trained reflex that would have me calling her back to soften it. Nothing. Just the quiet of my apartment and the sound of my coffee maker finishing its cycle. I went and poured a cup. I had a 9 o'clock meeting to prepare for. 27 days to go. She found an apartment on day 27, a 2-bedroom unit in a subsidized housing complex in the Westfield neighborhood. Not the area she'd wanted, not the school district she'd specified, not the yard she'd insisted the children needed, but it was a real apartment, with a working kitchen and 2 actual bedrooms, and she could afford the rent on her income without needing anyone else's money to do it. The move happened on a Saturday. I wasn't there. I didn't offer to be. Renee's friend Tanisha came with a borrowed van. My parents helped with boxes. By early afternoon, it was done. I transferred the money that evening as promised. $800 for Officer Calloway's damages, $1,200 for first month's rent and security deposit. $2,000 total. $2,000 to close a door. I had thought I'd feel some kind of relief when I did it. Maybe even something like victory. What I actually felt was more ordinary than that. A kind of clean finality. The feeling of a thing completed correctly after being done wrong for a long time. At 9:44 that night, Renee texted me. "I hope you know how hard this has been for me. I read it twice. Then I set my phone face down on the kitchen counter and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. I let the tea steep for exactly 4 minutes, the way the box says to. I poured it into the blue mug I've had since college. I sat at my kitchen table in the quiet of my apartment and drank it slowly. It had been hard for her. That was probably true. Change is hard. Accountability is hard. Being the person who has to solve your own problems when you've spent 15 years outsourcing that job is genuinely, legitimately hard. I drank my tea. I did not respond to the text. Lorraine came home the day after Renee moved out. She spent the first weekend just walking through the house slowly, room by room, making a list on a yellow legal pad she carried from room to room. New carpet throughout the main floor. The old had stains she'd tried 3 different products on and given up. Professional upholstery cleaning for the couch and the 2 armchairs. Wall repairs in 3 rooms. The hallway, which had scuff marks at child height, running the full length of it. The guest room fully restored. Her framed photos back on the walls, the cedar sachets she keeps in the linen closet replaced, the small lamp with the blue shade that Renee had moved to a different room for reasons Lorraine never asked about returned to its proper place on the nightstand. When my mother called me once the restoration was done, she didn't lead with the damage. She led with the quiet. "I went into the guest room this morning," she said, "and I just stood there. 5 minutes, maybe. Just stood in there." A pause. I'd forgotten what it felt like. The repair and restoration bill came to $4,200. My parents paid it themselves, without discussion, without a word to me about it. That told me everything. A family that had spent years asking me to contribute to Renee's problems paid $4,000 in damages without even mentioning it to me, because they were that desperate to have their home back, because they would have paid twice that to make it over, because the relief of Renee being gone was worth $4,000 without negotiation. I didn't point this out. Some things don't need to be said out loud. I did not go to Sunday dinners for 3 more months. Not punishment, not distance exactly, more like discretion. Some things need settling time. Some wounds need to close before you put weight on them, and a family dynamic that had operated one way for 30 years needed more than a few weeks to find its new shape. I gave them space to do that without me in the middle of it. I talked to Marcus Jr. occasionally. He called me once from his new school. A different number, one I didn't have yet, and I almost let it go to voicemail. I'm glad I didn't. He wanted to complain about a math teacher who he felt was targeting him specifically in the particular way that 12-year-olds are certain of targeting. I listened. I asked some questions. I suggested he talk to his guidance counselor and mentioned that sometimes the teacher who's hardest on you is the one who thinks you can take it. He went quiet for a moment and then said, in a tone that meant he was actually considering it. He's a smart kid. He just needed to not be told that 11 times a day by a parent too distracted to actually watch. Kayla sent me a drawing in the mail, an actual physical drawing on actual paper, in an envelope with a stamp she'd applied at a slight diagonal. The drawing was of the 2 of us. I could tell because she'd given my figure longer hair and a briefcase, at what appeared to be a park. Under it, she had written in careful 2nd-grade print, "I miss you, Auntie Deja." The U in Auntie was backwards. I put it on my refrigerator with a magnet from a museum I'd visited in Denver. It made me smile every time I walked past it, and also, occasionally, made something ache just behind my sternum. Not regret, just awareness of what gets lost in the damage, the collateral that falls between two people's worst patterns. The kids had not asked for any of this. They deserved better than what they'd been given, and also better than what they might become if this went on indefinitely. I thought about that sometimes. About whether the version of stability they were experiencing now, a mother in counseling, a smaller apartment, a school they hadn't chosen, a quieter life, was actually better for them than the chaos had been. I thought it probably was. Not perfect, not easy, but real in a way that chaos never is. Renee's new boyfriend lasted 3 months. My mother mentioned him in passing. Stable, responsible. She'd met him at Marcus Jr. School. He seemed genuinely interested. He ended the relationship quietly in month 3, the specific way that people end relationships when they've realized they've been gradually handed a situation they didn't agree to take on. Renee told Lorraine he was afraid of commitment. Lorraine told me this with a tone that was carefully neutral, and I responded with a tone that matched hers exactly. Some conversations are complete without being finished. Renee called me on a Tuesday evening in early spring. Her voice was different from the first word, not performed, not building to something. She sounded like a person who had put down something heavy and hadn't quite gotten used to her hands being empty. "I've been going to counseling," she said, "for about 2 months now." "I didn't know that," I said. "I know. I didn't tell anybody at first. I didn't want it to be a thing." A pause. "My therapist is helping me see some stuff about how She stopped. "About why my relationships keep ending the way they do, about how I deal with problems." Another pause. "About what I've done to you over the years." I sat down on my couch. "I'm not calling to ask for anything," she said. "I just want to be clear about that. I'm not setting anything up. My therapist actually helped me practice this call because I have a tendency to..." A short, wry breath. "I have a tendency to make my apologies into negotiations." Despite everything, I felt something loosen slightly in my chest. "She's right," I said. "I know." Renee was quiet for a moment. "Deja, I know I've said sorry before, and I know that most of the time when I said it, I was really just trying to get back to a place where you'd help me again. And Her voice went slightly unsteady. "I'm sorry for that, too, for using the words without meaning them." I didn't fill the silence. "I want to know if you'd be willing to have coffee with me," she said finally. "Just us. Not at Mama and Daddy's, not a family thing, just coffee. And I don't have an agenda beyond that." "No agenda," I said. "None, I swear." A pause. "I know you have no reason to believe me." "I have some reason," I said. "You called me on a Tuesday evening with no crisis attached. That's actually pretty new for us." A small sound, almost a laugh. "That's a low bar." "It's where we are," I said. "But yes." "I'll have coffee with you." We met the following Saturday at a place downtown. Neutral territory, her suggestion, which was itself something. She was already there when I arrived, sitting with a cup in front of her, no phone out, watching the door. She'd gotten a haircut since I'd last seen her. She looked less wound up, less like someone perpetually waiting for the next thing to go wrong. We talked for an hour and 10 minutes. She told me about the counseling, what she was working on, what she was beginning to understand about herself. She asked about my new apartment, which she'd never seen. She asked about work. She asked about my plant, which she remembered from the old place and which has, in fact, thrived in the better light of the new one. She did not ask for anything. Halfway through, I asked her directly, "How are you actually doing? Not managing it doing, actually." She thought about it for a real moment. "Hard," she said. "It's hard." I have a lot of days where I feel like I spent 30 years waiting for my life to get easier, and now I'm finally understanding that I was the one making it harder. She looked at her cup. That's not a fun thing to sit with. No, I said. It isn't. But I'm sitting with it, she said. That's different. When we got up to leave, she hugged me. A real hug, not the performed one from the dinner. Just her arms around me, holding for a second longer than necessary. Thank you for not giving up on me, she said, even when I gave you every reason to. I didn't give up on you, I said. I gave up on being your solution to everything. She pulled back and looked at me. I understand the difference now. I believed her. Not completely, not yet. Trust is something you rebuild slowly and in specific amounts, not all at once. But I believed her enough. I drove home in the early afternoon light, windows down, music low. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Plant on the sill, books on the shelf, coffee maker clean and ready, Kayla's drawing on the refrigerator. I had spent 28 years being called selfish for wanting to belong to myself, for believing that my money, my space, my time, my peace were mine to protect. I had spent years having that belief treated as a character flaw, a coldness, a rigidity, a failure of love. I didn't feel any of that anymore. What I felt standing in my quiet kitchen in the early spring light was something much simpler. I felt like I was home. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.